Hello and welcome to the 2025 Create Change Info Session. My name is Trisha Barton, and I am the Senior Manager Arts and Pedagogy with the Laundromat Project. And this is an informational about our three programs, which is our Create Change Fellowship, our Create Change Artist in Residency program, and our Create Change Artist in Residency Bed-Stuy program. Let's get started. With the Laundromat Project, we have a mission where we advance artists and neighbors as change agents in their own communities. And with our vision, we envision a world in which artists and neighbors and communities of colors work together to unleash the power of creativity to transform lives. The way that we go about maintaining that is utilizing our values. And so these are a list of our values. You can also receive a more deeper description of what our values are on our website. But they are nurture creativity, be POC centered, create change, value place, write your own histories, practice abundance, be propelled by love, and be community centered. The LP has had various homes over the years. Our current location is on set 1476 Fulton Street in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. We are excited to be a part of that vibrant community, but this is not the first time that we were originally a part of it. Originally, we were founded within Bed-Stuy, and that was around 2005. We were located in Harlem in around 2009, and in 2014 we were located in Kelly Street, the Bronx. Generally, our Create Change program began in around 2006, and you can always come and visit us at our storefront from Mondays through Fridays, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., except for on Wednesdays. So let's talk a little bit about Create Change. What is it? And we'll talk a little bit about the goals. And in general, when we think about Create Change, we're really emphasizing community engagement through creative practice. Over the course of these years, we've supported nearly about 300 artists who are a part of our alumni and who are dedicated to their practice and creating change in the communities like Bed-Stuy and throughout New York City and a little bit beyond. With our program in general, we have our learning blocks that we like to maintain our structure around. That is make art, build community, and create change. So let's talk a little bit about them. So our first learning block is make art. Through this program, and what we really focus on is participants having the opportunity to explore artworks across various social practices and creative placemaking, align with other cultural assets such as like asset mapping and leadership development approaches. But it's really thinking about how do we deepen our artistic practice and how can we further ask ourselves questions to deepen it. Next is our build community learning block, which focuses on building trust and accountability with communities through art and cultural practices. It encourages community engagement and collaboration. That is a major learning block that we hold. And all of our learning blocks are embedded within the programming that we provide once you are accepted within the program. Next is create change. In Creating Change, we discuss how creativity can shift narratives and create meaningful change, highlighting the impact of art in social and community transformation. And when we think about change is not always just about seeing an immediate change or something that is large or grandiose, but also recognizing that change happens in small formats as well, and being able to measure that and to take a look at that and investigate it. Next up, I'm going to start talking about our programs and what the offerings are. So first and foremost, we have our fellowship program. That is a 6-month incubator that gives participants the tools to develop, workshop, and generate project ideas, incorporating the LP values and the community-based methodology. The program requires significant time commitment, as fellows will be designing community engaged programs within Bed-Stuy. The program offers a $1,500 honorarium and a production budget for programming that will be given to the group. The way that the final presentation or the finalization of the program is fellows are placed into groups, 3 to 4. They're paired with a local community organization that we at the LP have highlighted as a potential like community need. We do community needs assessments, and through the various organizations that address those needs, we will be partnering you with them. And through that time, you'll be working on the priority social issues identified through those assessments and how we ended up picking that community partner. When we think about the format, as I mentioned before, the program starts in February and it runs through September. Each fellow will receive a stipend of $1,500 on their participation and a group production fund, which I had mentioned before. In that general format, you will receive orientation, our Create Change Lab, which is all of our workshops that incorporate all of the learning blocks that I just mentioned. You will also receive cohort coaching sessions, professional development opportunities based on our learning blocks. There's also be an opportunity to develop collaborative public program with community partners. That is in like kind of the final project motion of like what you and your community partner and your group develop. And then there's a culminating final activation. We call the activation a moment where that project is being activated or shown in community. And then there is a presentation to kind of talk about the insights that came from that experience with our fellows as well as with our community partners. And then sometimes, and also we have access to office hours with our LP staff. And lastly, we also have supplemental artist workshops. In general, this is the schedule that you, if you are accepted as a fellow, will be following. If you notice at the bottom where it's between July 12th to August 23rd, you'll see asterisks on the side where it says fellows activations. What that means is that we encourage all people a part of our cohort to come to all of these events. We understand that life happens and that everyone can't attend those, but for each week, that is a fellow group that will be doing their activation. So the groups will be offered these weekends to be able to select from, upon which they will do their activation on that time during that time range. So that's just like thinking about the end, like the end all of the fellowship. But in the beginning, it's our orientation, our Create Change Lab. We have coaching sessions and then community partner check-ins. The Create Change Lab, there is the likelihood that that will actually be overnight. And so when thinking about, and goes for fellows as well as heirs, when you are doing your applications, ensuring that you're able to commit to those that times. It may end up not being overnight, but that is our hope and our goal and our desire, so that we can best serve the needs of everyone. And then for our fellows coaching, that would be virtual, and our community partner check-ins would be in person. And then there's one workshop that is an optional one that we usually also invite our alumni to as well. General eligibility for our fellowship is you have to be at least 21 years of age. You are not enrolled in a degree seeking program. You're committed to working with collaboratively with other cohort members. You're in alignment with the LP values and the POC centered principles. You demonstrate a practice of deep interest and in socially and community engaged art. We also are looking for individuals who demonstrate a practice or a deep interest in socially and community engaged art, and are familiar with cultural history or local issues impacting communities in color in general, and are based in New York. One thing that I will also mention is that within the fellowship and the activations that do take place, they will be located in Brooklyn, Bed-Stuy. They're targeted towards that area, just as a preface for you to be familiar with. Next, I'm going to step into our residency program. So, our Create Change residency program supports the development of participatory and community in tune creative projects by artists of color working within communities. Projects may take place anywhere in the 5 boroughs, either in person or virtually, across various community sites, from laundromats and urban gardens to playgrounds and community centers. The artists and residents are expected to develop collaborative projects in community through partnerships and engagement with neighbors, local stakeholders, and community organizations. So, one thing I want to make very clear in the difference between these applications is that in the residency application, you are proposing a project, while on the opposite end for the fellowship, you are really diving deep into just who you are as an artist in your practice and where you would like to go. So, those are two different approaches to the application to consider. The general format of our residency, it's a year-long program. Each artist will receive $18,000 honorarium and up to $10,000 in project production funds. The program, again, also you will have orientation and Create Change Lab along the side of the other Create Change fellows. The cohort will have coaching sessions, professional development opportunities, public open studios, which will be a touch point with your community. So that is a public facing moment to kind of share what work has taken place since you have been in the residency. You also receive a mentor to support the development of your project and create practice at large. One thing to really be said or to focus on is that the artists are selecting the mentors. We do not prescribe the mentors. We take a list of your top 3 to 5 mentors, and we do our very best to make sure that we connect you at least for an hour with that individual. So you would come prepared with lots of questions and to receive all the forms of guidance that you can from that mentor. And then lastly, you would have access to our alumni community upon completion. That goes the same for our fellows as well. We have a network of about 300 alumni over the years that we have been doing our programming. I'm going to step next into our resident schedule. Very similar, but it has its own program track. So orientation and Create Change Lab are the same for both fellows and residents as it relates to the workshops. The in between time is a little bit different. Then there is also an LP board presentation that is an air only event that contains our LP board and contains some really VIPs and press, and that is an opportunity for our artists to be able to articulate additional needs that they may need in support of their project, and also just talk about like generally what their project is and what they are trying to accomplish. So that is a moment. All of the air coaching sessions are virtual, and when we speak about the air open studio, very similar to the format of like with the fellows, you will as a resident, you will only select one of these dates to be your open studio date, but we recommend that all airs go to each other's open studios because it's always a wonderful moment to be able to kind of see the evolution of someone's project over time, especially as they've been in with each other during like the coaching sessions as well. Eligibility. So what I am going to do when I talk about, actually, I'll go back really quickly. When we're talking about the resident schedule, that also includes the Bed-Stuy heirs as well. Bed-Stuy heirs and standard residents, they have the same schedules and generally the same program format. The focuses of eligibility are different. So I'm going to talk a little bit about eligibility. So when we're talking about our residency, again, you have to be at least 21 years old. You're in alignment with the LP values and POC principles. You have a creative practice that demonstrates a record of public engagement in the creative practice. You demonstrate an interest or a practice in socially and community engaged art. You live in one of the 5 boroughs. You're committed to co-creating a community art project. You're familiar with the cultural history and the local issues impacting the community that you plan to work with. So it is you can work within any borough or any particular location, but just being familiar kind of with what that project and who the individuals are that are in within that community are important. Next is eligibility for our Bed-Stuy residents. And so there's some slightly different uh, criterion that we're considering when we look at this application. One, they need to be at least 21 years of age. That's for all across all of our programs. They are also familiar with the cultural history and the local issues specifically impacting Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. They live, work, or have shown some form of investment within the Bed-Stuy communities. They are in alignment with our LP values or POC principles. They have a creative practice that demonstrates a record of public engagement in their creative practice. There's also a demonstration of interest or practice in socially and community engaged art. And then lastly, are committed to co-creating a community art project. So those are the eligibilities. And the main difference between like the standard artist in residency program and the Bed-Stuy is that deep investment within the Bed-Stuy community in particular and a familiarity. I would also like to mention or also highlight um, to help our like with the priorities that we're thinking when we're selecting our Bed-Stuy. These are some of the things that we're considering when we are looking at an application. And we do not want, just because someone has, encountered some form of, injustice or displacement or gentrification, we still want people who have had a long-standing relationship with Bed-Stuy to still be able to apply. We just request that you show some form of proof that you've had that long-lasting relationship. And in general, we're really prioritizing applicants from generational or long-term residents, that's 10 consecutive years, applicants who identify as Black, Indigenous, Native, or people of color, applicants who are individuals that are from the disability community, including the immune compromised, and applications from individuals who identify as LGBTQIA+. Next, I'm going to go into our COVID statements or requirements for all of our cohort members. So, given the presence of COVID-19 in our communities, all accepted Create Change program participants are required to be fully vaccinated for the COVID-19. So that means they've either received both doses or the one dose, and they must provide proof of vaccination upon request by the organization. In addition, masks are required while indoors at the LP storefront location during COVID-19 spikes and surges and other elevated risks and scenarios. We very much so are not interested in being a super spreader at any form of way. So we will be at our programming, we will be providing PPE, we will be providing sanitation, and we'll also give people the opportunity to test as well, just to ensure that they are not positive at that time. Next, we're going to step into the application. All right. So when we are talking about the application, we're going to outline kind of the required documents, deadlines, guidelines. We can also provide some tips for crafting a strong application, differences between applications, and just like some like small differences that like on timelines that will be different between the fellow and the resident process. So first and foremost, our artist in residence application is a project proposal in detail with a timeline. Questions to gauge the relationship to your proposed community. We're really looking at project budget, and also something to also to think about is, are you also interested in the fellowship as well? There's a place within the application to mention that. You can check that box, and that will also be something that will be considered. For the Bed-Stuy artist in residence, questions are really around gauging the relationship with your familiarity with Bed-Stuy and general like priority statement and questions about identifiers. Let's talk a little bit about our open call timeline. So we are currently in our open call timeline, which was our application opened on submittable on September 10th, and it will be closing on October 10th. Our residency interviews, so if someone is selected to go into the second round, those interviews will be taking place between November 18th to the 22nd of 2024. And then all applicants will receive award notifications by December of 2024. When we think about our selection process, the LP staff will review all applications and select a short list. This short list will be reviewed by our Artist Community Council. Our Artist Community Council includes individuals who are highly regarded, that have expertise within various realms of from art and art administration to innovation and other like spaces, to help support us in selecting our applicants as well. We want to make sure that we are considering all avenues when we're selecting our cohort. So when we are having our second rounds for the residents will look like you will receive an invitation for an interview between those dates of November 18th to the 21st. And that interview will last about 25 minutes. And we will give you about 5 minutes to pitch uh, or ask a question, or ask any questions related to your project. Fellows, the second round, there will not be interviews. What we will ask is to submit a video in response to a prompt provided by the LP at that time, if you have been invited. So that's what it's going to look like in the second round of processes. And that really is our info session. If you do have questions, please go onto our website. There's spaces to book office hours. I think it's about 15 minutes. Please come with questions, or if there are particular questions you're trying to figure out in creating your application, we are happy to answer those. If you are not able to book a time for a not an info session, office hours, because they are limited, we recommend you can always send an email with your questions at apply@laundromatproject.org. In the meantime, we are so excited to review your applications. We hope that this information was incredibly informative. And please send us your questions, and we look forward to looking at your application. Thank you so much.